So just to discuss next then the 4 ports of call that were included within this cruise. And I know when we were going in the summer, they were alternating between this itinerary and another itinerary. But the 4 ports of call that we enjoyed were Stavanger, Olden, Hellesylt and Haugesund. So Stavanger was our first port of call, a beautiful port. It's full of shops, it's full of cafes and bars. However, don't make the same mistake as we did, because we disembarked really early. We're very much morning people. We disembarked early, and a lot of as you would imagine, the bars aren't open, but some of the cafes weren't open either. The majority of the shops were. Yeah, really beautiful port. We didn't book an excursion for this day. We just wanted to, sort of have a look around and do some shopping. We managed to get ourselves some really nice, comfy and cutchy Norwegian hoodies and things. Yeah, definitely worth looking around. Lovely little walks. It's really nice just off the ship, actually. You've got all sort of the old houses up these little sort of cobble streets and stuff. We didn't go up there. Both myself and my husband, as I said earlier, have got disabilities, and the uneven floor I don't think would have suited us very well. But we had a really good view. Being on the starboard side of the ship, we had a really good view of that area from the balcony. Actually, it was really nice. So all in all, Stavanger was lovely. It was definitely warmer than we expected it to be. We took jeans and hoodies and t-shirts and umbrellas and sun cream and sun hats and woolly hats and gloves. So we were sort of all sort of bases covered in that respect. It looked quite sort of overcast when we first got off the ship, but it got quite warm in the afternoon, and the 3 of us were wearing jeans. But because we were going to the Olive Grove in the afternoon, we went back on board about sort of 1 o'clock, I think, to clean up a little bit before we went for lunch. But yeah, really enjoyed this day. We did, as I say, pack for every sort of eventuality, but we had the most glorious weather this week. But just bear that in mind that, it may be sort of our summer, but it may have rain. There may be sort of cloud, and it may be windy. So one of my close friends went a couple of years ago, and they couldn't stop in Olden at all because they couldn't dock there because the weather was so bad. Same time of year as us, sort of mid-July. So that's just something to bear in mind for the future. But yeah, Stavanger was wonderful. So the next day, the Tuesday then, was Olden. This was what we were looking forward to the most. And it happened to be that the Olden day was on our anniversary, celebrating 15 years married on that day. So we booked to go on an excursion. We woke up that morning. We were told the night before, actually, by the captain that it would take 4 hours to sort of travel down from the sea and down the fjord, and that if you got up around 4 a.m, you'd see some sort of breathtaking views. So we decided to do that, much to Mia's sort of dismay. All I can say is that 4 o'clock wake-up call is so worth it. This is what a Norwegian Fjords cruise is all about, in my opinion. I wouldn't have changed a thing. It was absolutely breathtaking. It makes me quite emotional for the 3 of us to be sat with, in our pyjamas and dressing gown, balcony with a hot drink, just watching this beautiful mountains and snow-topped mountains and things pass you, and a beautiful sunrise. It was just incredible, and it's one of those things that we'll probably remember forever. Really, it was absolutely breathtaking. I urge you, if you are going, please don't miss this. Please don't put sleep above it, because it was just, like I say, it was just outstanding. And even if you have an inside cabin and you haven't got the luxury of a balcony, a lot of people were on deck. A lot of people went up at the top of the ship on sort of deck 15 and 16, and also there was a lot on the promenade deck on deck 8 as well. So just walking around with a coffee and things, yeah, just made the most of it. It is so worth it. The videos I took actually and put into the first vlog one of this cruise, it was so difficult, and I know it sort of seems it was a lot of footage of that one thing, but to me that was the standout part of especially this day. But we'll talk about the excursion next. So to be honest, the 3 of us were really torn as to which one of the ports was our favourite. I think Olden and Hellesylt come in very close. Olden is going to be special to us for one reason, is because of that early morning, and it was our anniversary. So yeah, talk about the excursion we booked then. We'd read and watched a lot of vlogs where they described the difference in price between booking with Olden Adventure and booking it through P&O. We found that it was almost half of the price booking it directly with Olden Adventure than it was booking it via P&O. We were sceptical because we didn't know of what the difference was going to be with regard to what you get extra because you paid extra. We disembarked really early. We were quite close to the front of the queue to get off the ship that morning. We'd printed off our email confirmation booking for Olden Adventure for the Lone Skylift. So we just made our way off the ship and sort of off the dock, and basically in front of you you've got a load of sort of marquees. It just said Olden Adventure on there, and then it had a sign for both the Lone Skylift and the Glacier. We booked the Skylift and we booked it for between, I think it was 9 and 12, I want to say, or 9 and 1 or something like that. So we knew we'd need to go in the morning. We were one of the first there, and the guy basically looked at the email and gave us 3 tickets, 2 adults and 1 child ticket, and said you need to just go down there and go and stand by the blue bus. Plus we were on the first bus with P&O passengers that had booked the excursion directly with P&O. So they weren't getting any sort of preferential treatment for paying more money. They were on the same bus as us. We did discuss booking. Olden Adventure did do a package of both the Lone Skylift and the Glacier, but like I said, with our mobility issues, we thought perhaps the Glacier would have been, I know you can do the troll car sort of halfway up, but I think the footing is a little bit uneven, and the amount of walking that it would have taken would have caused both myself and my husband some mobility issues. So we just decided to do the Skylift. Now, with the Skylift, you're not limited to how long you stay up the top of the mountain for either. So there are many different sort of hiking routes up there and hiking trails depending on your sort of ability and stuff. So yeah, we got on the bus, we arrived at the Skylift, and we showed our tickets, and we were on the first, what would you call them? Lifts. Obviously it's a sky lift. We were on the first lift going up to the top, and the lift ride itself was incredible. Mia absolutely loved it. It took just over 5 minutes, I think, to get from the bottom to the top. Like I say, she loved it. The views are something I will never forget. Having been to New York and you know, done the top of the rock and things, and seeing, you know, the New York skyline for both sides, that was incredible. But this being all natural and nature has made it, was just, I can't describe as breathtaking. And I know I've said that a lot through these 3 vlogs, but it was just like something I'd never experienced. There were people actually parasailing, I think that's what it's called, or paragliding off the side, and to watch them was just, Mia absolutely loved it. It was like a standout for us. It was just incredible. We absolutely loved it. And to think that we paid half of the price that people did with P&O is just bonkers to me. What I would say is, if you are going to book it separate, I would book it and try and get off the ship as early as possible, like we did, to try and avoid the queues, because when we were coming down a couple of hours later, the queues were extraordinary. I think at the last thing we saw, it was 2 hours from there. So obviously it's going to take 2 hours in the queue. Obviously it only takes 5 minutes to get up there, but then obviously you're limited to the amount of time. Now, if you don't book an excursion directly with P&O, the ship will not wait for you if you're late coming back. Only if you book direct with P&O, then will the ship wait if the excursion's running late or anything. So especially if you're looking at doing both the Skylift and the Glacier, I would definitely get on the Skylift as early as possible to try and avoid those extreme queues, because not just the queue, it was absolutely boiling as well. So, you know, there were people in the queues with sort of hand fans and trying to shelter from the sun, because there wasn't a lot of, well, there isn't any sort of shade or shelter there. But yeah, what an amazing day. The weather forecast actually in the run up to this week that we'd booked, for sort of 3 weeks before, both myself and my husband were like, oh my god, the weather's going to be so bad, it is going to be so wet when we go to Olden. And hella silt, not so much with Stavanger and Haugesund, but the outlook of the weather forecast was really, really bad. Hence that's why we ended up taking umbrellas and coats, and my husband even took sort of waterproof trousers and stuff, but we didn't end up using any of them because it was absolutely boiling. Really, really nice. So yeah, when we got back from the Skylift and got back to the port, we just had a look at there's a few shops just across the way, so we had a look in there, bought some little knick-knacky bits. Mia loves a sort of a fridge magnet and a pin and things. So that evening then we went to the beach house, as we described earlier on, and when we were in the beach house, actually, they always do sort of a famous sort of sail away from Olden, and a lot of the people that live there sort of hang out at the front of the houses or on the dockside there. Mia actually spied a Welsh flag. Somebody was waving a Welsh flag down there. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, I'll insert the clip here of she was very, very pleased to see a Welsh flag there. So she had to take a picture. So next port up, we've got Helisilt. Again, what a beautiful, breathtaking place. We got off the ship around 7 a.m. Like I said earlier, we are really early birds, and we wanted to make the most of trying to get some photos and some footage of, just as you sort of disembark the ship, you walk a tiny bit up and then there's an outstandingly beautiful waterfall. So we wanted to get some nice pictures and footage around there, but also we knew that we had to walk quite a distance, so there was benches luckily dotted around the sort of port side on the route there, so we knew we need to take some breaks for both myself and my husband. So while we went to go meet our excursion, now this day we did decide to book an excursion directly with P&O, which was the Grangerford Waterfall Cruise excursion. Now the reason we did this was we'd watched some other people's videos on the Helisilt port day, and they had said that they also do a Grangerford sort of bus where you can go to the next sort of place over on this boat. But sometimes if the weather was bad or it was really, really busy, people weren't making it back to the ship in time. So although we wanted a book for the morning, we didn't want the sort of worry in case the weather had taken a turn, because we thought the weather was going to be bad on this day. We didn't want to be sort of stranded and not make it back to the ship in time. So we booked this directly with P&O. Now this boat trip was absolutely magical. The three of us absolutely loved it. Mia enjoyed taking lots of video footage, taking lots of photographs. She took lots of selfies. She absolutely loved it, and you know, you can see that from the footage in my my second vlog video that I did. It is so, Norway is so clean, it's unspoilt, it's just breathtakingly beautiful. I know we're surrounded by nature, but the air is so clean. It's like you can breathe, like you've got time, like it feels calm and serene and tranquil. I just can't speak any more highly of this cruise as a whole, really. The fjords, like I said, we were really worried that it wouldn't be suitable for Mia, but I think she's at the age now, being nearly 12, that you know, she understands nature and the environment a little bit better, and she doesn't need to be constantly entertained and stuff. And if you were to ask her, she'd say that this day and this excursion for her was better than the Skylift. And I thought it would have been the other way around. I thought, you know, 2.5 hours on quite a small boat would be the least thing she'd want to do. It's not very high energy or anything, but she absolutely loved it. The only downside, and I think the people who went on the afternoon excursion found this worse than we did in the morning, was that we got there in time in the morning, actually early, which is, we're always early. We didn't leave till late, but also we came back from the excursion back and disembarked the cruise boat earlier than we were meant to. So we weren't technically given the sort of 2.5 hours that we thought we'd sort of booked when we booked the excursion. I know quite a few people on our morning excursion, and especially the ones in the afternoon, because I think they were shortchanged on time a lot more than we were. Plus they were left waiting out in the sun with no shade for a lot longer than we were in the morning too. So, but I think some of them, from what I could gather on the ship that evening, some complained to P&O when they got back on the ship to get services, and they were basically said, well, you know, that it's just what it is, and didn't get any sort of compensation for having a shorter day. So, you know, all in all, the excursion was wonderful. It is pricey, but it is breathtaking. You know, it showcases the Seven Sisters waterfalls really, really well. Like I say, the weather really helped. It was absolutely incredible weather-wise that day. There is tea and coffee on board, and they do give out some waffles, which Simon and Mia enjoyed for their breakfast, because obviously we hadn't had breakfast because we were doing the excursion at 7:30, so they really enjoyed them. So yeah, when we got back off the boat trip, going back across the bridge where the waterfall is, it was absolutely bonkers with people. Now the bridge is quite narrow, but there's cars coming over it. People are trying to stop to take photographs of the waterfall in the background, one side of the bridge, and then the Iona in the background on the other side of the bridge. So if you want some good photographs or good footage, or you're a little worried about having little ones sort of toddling around or whatever, my suggestion to you is to go first thing in the morning when it's a lot quieter, because when we were on our way back at that was around, I want to say 10 o'clock, it was absolutely crazy with people even at that time of the day. So just be mindful of that. There's quite a few different shops along the side of the front there. We again bought some more apparel. Mia bought, and she absolutely loves a Norwegian flag, just so that she could wave it when we had all aboard, or when we were leaving port of an evening. Although there was nobody in hell herself waving back to us, she should have got one, but we never saw one when we were in Oldham anyway, but that's what she wanted it for. But yeah, she absolutely loved that. So we found some really, really nice things to buy, some knick-knacky things. We got a magnet from each of the ports as well for the fridge. Mia loves a magnet. So yeah, so that was hella silt. Like I say, absolutely breathtaking. Definitely try and do an excursion. There was people on sort of canoes. I know they do paddle boarding, they do a rib boat excursion, although Mia was too young to do the rib boat. She would have loved that, sort of the high speed thing. But I think to take in the sort of scenery, the waterfall cruise that we did was outstanding, because you get to see things for longer than you would if you were on a rib boat, as adrenaline inducing as that would have been. So next port of call then, on our last port day, we were a little bit disappointed at this actually, was Haugesund. Now, we knew that it was quite an industrial port. We didn't book an excursion for this day. We didn't sort of venture anywhere other than to this couple of shops right at the port side, because neither of us can, as I've said before, mobilise for very long. So we didn't want to sort of go too far from the ship. I know there's a lot of people buying in the gift shop a bus ticket to go into town and things. But by this time, all of us were exhausted and had walked. Walking the ship is enough, never mind walking on the sort of port days as well. So I think we basically had enough by this time. Plus, because we knew it was going to be an industrial port, we'd already agreed and told Mia that she'd be desperate to go in the pool. She'd been in a hot tub once on the Stavanger day, of the afternoon of the Stavanger day, after we had lunch in the Olive Grove. But we promised her that she could go in up to the Sky Dome and go in the pool, and Simon went in the pool with her for an hour. So we did make the most of that. But like I say, Haugesund wasn't for us. We would have liked to have gone a little bit sort of further into town and things, but mobility issues didn't allow for that day, which was fine, because like I said, we got to do other family things that we enjoyed, and Mia loved being in the pool. So looking at Iona as the ship herself then, just giving you a bit of an overview of how we felt about that. Look, it's difficult for us to say how it compares to any other cruise ship, because it's the first one we've been on. However, we loved it. It's when you watch vlogs about it and you see sort of ship tours and things, it seems absolutely huge. And in fairness, it is huge. But once you start getting to know your way around, like the different colours of the different stairwells and things, it becomes a lot easier to sort of find your way around. I would probably say by the time we got to the Tuesday, so we embarked on the Saturday afternoon. So by the time we got to sort of the Oldham day, which was on a Tuesday, we pretty much kind of knew where everything was and how to get to certain places the easier way rather than taking the long way around sometimes. Little tip or hint for you, I know I'm going to go through some later on, but while I'm thinking about it now, in case I forget, the stairwells all have sort of circular decorations mounted on the walls. Now, the blue circles are forward, so it's the front of the ship, because it is blue for the horizon and the sea. The white or silver, I don't know what they're called, but they sort of white and grey colour ones are midship, and the red ones are in the aft of the ship, which is the back of the ship, because they're supposed to portray the sunset, I'm led to believe. So as long as you remember blue, white, grey, silver, and then red at the back. So, if you come out of a lift and you're at the stairs and you think, oh gosh, what part of the ship am I in? I don't know where I'm going. Have a look at those circles and it'll tell you give you a good indication of which way you need to go. So blue, white and grey or silver, and then red for the back of the ship. Excursions, so a little bit of an overview on excursions. We only booked one excursion via P&O directly. It was expensive. We wanted a guarantee that we could do the morning rather than not having a guarantee of what kind of time of day you would book, so we could have the rest of the day to ourselves. Hella Silt was incredibly beautiful. We do feel like we were shortchanged a little bit the amount of time we were told that waterfall cruise would last. Like I said earlier, we were late leaving and we were early coming back. So we do feel like we were shortchanged, especially for the sort of £90 each, I think it was, for Simon and I, and then sort of half of that then for Mia as she goes as a child. So, you know, it wasn't a cheap excursion to go on. An apology was given by P&O to those people who did complain about it, but sort of no sort of compensation or anything. And it was disappointing because we felt like we'd missed out on time, you know, even if the boat had stopped. I know they slow down when you go to like the Seven Sisters waterfalls and things, but even if we just sort of stopped there for sort of 10 or 15 minutes just for people to take photographs or you know, video footage would have been something. I don't know whether they, you know, we went down and turned around and came back too quickly. I don't know what the answer to that was, but we were a little bit disappointed on them. What I would suggest though is do your research for each port and look at other options of what is available, so you haven't got to book directly with P&O. Like I said, the Skylift excursion was actually almost half the price booking directly with Olden Adventure, and you basically didn't get any sort of preferential treatment because you booked it with P&O. You're on the same bus, in the same queue, the same sort of Skylift, so you weren't getting anything. All you were having was a guarantee that you'd be back on the ship and that they wouldn't leave you behind. But like I said, if you opt for going for the morning one rather than the all day one, if you book through Olden Adventure, you know you're not gonna miss the ship, because you know you're gonna be back within plenty of time for that, as long as you don't get too engrossed in doing the sort of walking trails on the top of the mountain. But yeah, try and find companies that do different things in the different ports, and like I say, always go with a sort of a reputable company. If somebody that you know, or sort of a YouTuber or anybody that you follow can give you hints and tips on what those companies are. You know, we don't work with Olden Adventure. I'm just trying to, you know, share with you what we found useful, and it worked out well for us. Okay, so moving on to entertainment then. We loved all the entertainment on board the ship. The shows were fab. Mia and I especially loved them. Simon's not too fussed, although he'll go wherever we're going. We really, really enjoyed all of the shows. The Greatest Day show, it's like a pared down version of the stage show. That was really, really good. But yeah, all of them, we loved them all. Mia loved being in the theatre. We also attended on 2 of the days, so both sea days, the Sunday and the Friday, 2 shows with the Animal Guys. And now they do shows in the UK, and they go around different sort of theatre venues and do shows there, raising awareness on sort of animal conservation and things. And we pre-booked these in advance before going for both the Sunday and the Friday, which, like I said, were our sea days. This was in the Headliners Theatre. It's aimed at children, probably younger children than Mia, to be honest. But it was really interactive. Mia really, really enjoyed. You know, the kids got involved. There's the adults got involved, and it was just really, really fun. Like I said, we also attended a quiz with them in the week as well in the clubhouse one afternoon, and Mia got involved with that as well and went up and answered some questions on stage, which she liked. So yeah, my suggestion is if they are on board, I would highly recommend that. We didn't use any of the sort of quizzes on board. We didn't do bingo. We didn't, you know, because we had Mia with us, we didn't go to the casino or anything. We don't do that in normal everyday life anyway, so it wouldn't have been of any interest to us anyway. But all in all, excellent. My only suggestion is if you are going to the entertainment, to go early, because seats do fill up really, really quick, but also you can book these things. So if there's one in particular you want to see, make sure you book it in advance. So I'm going to just read this bit off the screen because it's some hints and tips and I don't want to get my wording or anything wrong. So just bear with me when I just read these. So the hints and tips that we've come up with then. So number 1 is pre-book all your restaurants and entertainment whenever they become available for your cruise date. So it's usually between 2 and 3 weeks before you sail. It suits us better to eat early and then do the show and then sort of relax afterwards, because we've got an 11-year-old. There are 2 show times one is later than the other. So, you know, whatever suits your family, but just try and book those in advance. You can actually cancel those online on the day so they can become available for other people. But there is a sort of walk-up wait list that you can join, but I don't know how many people book it and don't turn up. There isn't a charge, obviously, for booking the entertainment, but I would suggest it, like I say, especially if it's something that you really want to see, to book those in advance. Once you embark the ship, book any specialty dining that you missed, that you couldn't book. So things like the Olive Grove and things. Book those as soon as you get on. Like I said, when we tried to do it an hour after we embarked the ship, there was no Olive Grove dinner reservations left. So we had to go sort of for a late lunch one option instead. Also, you can, we didn't realise, pre-book your breakfast, your lunch and your dinner in the main dining rooms. We met, it's actually quite local to us really, only sort of 7 or 10 miles away from us. A lovely couple, like I say, local to us, who helped us show me on the virtual queue sort of app. It's like an intranet, it's not really an app. You log on to it when you join the ship. All the information is left in your cabin for you, but you can book the restaurants for breakfast, lunch and evening meal in advance. You haven't got to join the virtual queue every day, which is a lifesaver. We're early birds, so we were having breakfast sort of any time between 7:30 and 9 o'clock, depending on what we had planned for that day. It's especially helpful. Out of the 4 main dining rooms, the 2 that are hardest to get are the 2 smaller ones, which is the Aqua and the Opal. They're really, really difficult to get a walk-up wait for because they're so small. They're especially nice for an evening meal. Like, they're much more intimate and smaller and don't seem as vast as the larger ones. So if you do want to eat in them, I think we ate in both of them once each for evening, and then one of them, I want to say the Aqua, for breakfast on 2 occasions. But they do book up really quickly, and sometimes, depending on what embarkation time you get, you know, ours were either really early breakfasts or really sort of late breakfasts, none of sort of the middle of the road. So yeah, be sure to book those in advance, get on the app and you know, try and get those booked up if that's what you intend to do, is eat in the main dining rooms. As I mentioned earlier, just another reminder, when you are ordering breakfast, in the main dining rooms are everything that you want on that menu that you're going to eat, regardless of in which order you're going to eat them. Make sure you order them all at the same time. Also, as I explained earlier on, children can order from the main menu in the restaurants as well as the kids menu. Now, they would always give Mia the kids menu, but only, like I said, only on 2 occasions she ordered from the children's menu, she ordered from the adult menu the rest of the time, and they don't mind. Another good one is to take a reusable insulated water bottle with you so that you can use at the water fountain stations around the ship. They're good for walking around the ship and for going off the ship on port days. Obviously, you can't use these in the restaurants or, you know, sitting at in any of the bars or anything. But it is always handy rather than buying a million drinks, because Mia takes an age to drink a drink. Otherwise, we'd be carrying glasses around with us all day. Also, remember, you can order as much as you want in the restaurants, in the main dining room. So, for example, if you want to, you know, try 2 different starters, or you don't think the steak you had the night before was big enough and you want, you know, 2 main courses, or you want to try 2 different desserts, you can do that too. So, yeah, just remember that. You've got that option. On celebration night, be ready early if you would to have photographs taken in the atrium. The queues started early for us and lasted for hours and hours and hours. So I think we got to the atrium, got to the atrium about 6:15. We were led to believe that the photographs weren't going to be starting to be taken till 6 o'clock. So we'd had dining reservations booked in the Coral for 6 o'clock, but they'd already started queuing and started taking the photographs when we walked through 6:15. So because it was only like 4 people in front of us, we decided to queue then, and we managed to get our photos taken prior to having dinner that night. The photos are beautiful, but be careful, there is a lot of hard sell that goes on with these photographers. She took photos of the 3 of us, she took photos of just Simon and I, and she also took photos of Mia by herself, and then she proceeded to tell Mia how beautiful and photogenic she was and how wonderful her poses was, and then booked us in, caught us off guard and booked us in for a photo shoot the day after, which we then went on to cancel because we'd already had booked and paid for sort of an additional package to the photograph we knew we were going to get for free with the package that we bought. So yeah, just be mindful of the hard sell there, because they do try. If you are going to go to any of the shows in the Headliners Theatre, make sure you go early if you want good seats. We also found that being having issues with our mobility ourselves. I don't know whether it stands out to us a little bit more and makes it a bit more sort of thing in our minds, but a lot of people were, well, the front row seats always had on the ends of those, so say there was 5 seats, the ends would be leaving a gap for a sort of a wheelchair user. And those seats, those 5 seats, were meant to be taken up by people who were accompanying the wheelchair user. But a lot of people were using them without anybody accompanied by a wheelchair. Now, I didn't see, we saw all the shows, and we didn't see that anybody couldn't get a seat next to a wheelchair user. That wasn't sort of something we noticed. However, if you are a wheelchair user or you're sort of a family member of a wheelchair user, you may want to try and get there early so you can get those seats, really, so that your friend or loved one can sit next to you and be able to use their chair too. As I said earlier, don't take your own toiletries unless you're really fussy. We all have sensitive skin. The White Company products were beautiful, they smell lovely, and as I said earlier, we just asked the cabin steward for hair conditioner when we arrive, and that was left in the cabin, and then we had that to use. Even Simon being a man, they were quite florally smelling, but not sort of feminine-y floral. They were just clean floral smelling. So, yeah, they were good. Also, as I said earlier, if you want ice delivered to your room, make sure you ask for that, and they will try and get it as near on the sort of specific time that you request it. It was nice to have a little drink, even if for me it was a soft drink when you're getting ready of an evening. Like I said, they enjoyed a Pepsi Max or a Fanta. Like I said, I used a couple of the ice cubes that were still whole the next morning to make iced coffee, so that was really useful too. Another thing that I saw from somebody else actually was to take magnetic hooks, which come in really handy. We actually used them by the cabin door so that we could hang, we took lanyards. It's nothing worse for me than keep going through sort of purses or pockets, and sometimes the dress hasn't got a pocket to get your sort of cruise card out, so we had them on lanyard, which we bought from Amazon. So we hung those by the door so we would remember to hang them up when we came back, and then put them on before we left. Also, you can book, which I didn't realise until I registered Mia for Kids Club, you can book some of the Kids Club in advance. However, there is a charge for this. The sort of afternoon sessions are shorter and cost less, about £5, but the evening, we did book Mia in for the evening of our anniversary. We all ate together, and then Mia went to the kids club for a few hours for Simon and I just to go and have a quiet drink together just for our anniversary. She was like 2 hours late going there, but I think that was about £8.95, I think, so it wasn't a huge amount of money. You can book the day before for the next day for the kids club, but those places to fill up really, really quickly. So if there's something, if you want to do sort of the 7:10 club or Limelight or whatever, and the children can't go, and you want to go there one evening for something, special, I would book that in advance, and at least I know you've got to pay a few pounds for it, but at least you've got that luxury of not having to wait till the day before to book it, and possibly not having any availability for you. So yeah, that's always really good too. As I said earlier, we took some playing cards with us. We like playing the card game Blob. We saw a lot of people with sort of travel size board games. A lot of people playing Uno on board, and I carried those around in my handbag with me with this paper and a pen. And whenever we were waiting for a dining reservation, or just at a sort of a free hour of an afternoon, we'd sit in an empty bar, even if the bar wasn't open, and just sit at the table and play some cards. And that was really, really nice. It filled the time. It was sort of family bonding, a little bit of competition, which is always good, and it helped me not to be bored, and she didn't miss her phone at all. Then, talking of phones, Wi-Fi is my next one. My suggestion to you is, unless you need your phone for work, or in case somebody needs to get hold of you from home for emergency reasons or whatever, I would be without the Wi-Fi. We found the lack of phones, obviously, we were using the camera and my phone for photographs and footage and stuff, but we found a week with a digital detox absolutely wonderful. I wasn't looking at social media or watching YouTube videos. I didn't do it all day, and it was lovely. And of course, I used them to book restaurants, and we used my phone to take photos and some video footage sometimes. But the majority of the time, they were all just locked in the safe, and we just went without them. And we had some wonderful, uninterrupted, well-deserved quality family time, and we all loved it really. Not any of us, the 3 of us, missed it. So yeah, that was fab. So our overall review then of this cruise with P&O on Iona, the Norwegian Fjords, we absolutely loved it. I can't rave about it enough. Our first cruise experience, it exceeded all of our expectations. We didn't know what to you know, to expect. We knew that, you know, it wasn't going to be extremely bad weather-wise, like, you know, if you were doing sort of a transatlantic or whatever. We were, though, as a family, a little bit concerned that, as I said right at the start, that Mia wouldn't take to it, that she may have been bored, there wouldn't have been enough for her to do. You know, there's other cruise companies with, you know, fantastic ships that look like sort of floating resorts with all of the sort of water parks and things and activities on there. But in fairness, you know, she was really happy. She loved it. There were so many places to different places to eat, different things to do. You know, she done a lot of the planning with us with regard to the excursions, you know, where we ate, what things we wanted to do that was, you know, on the ship and those kinds of things. So, you know, we managed to manage her expectations really well. And like I say, she had her saying what she wanted from it as well. And I think, you know, this is key to her being happy, I think, with everything that we did, because she got a choice and she got, you know, her views and, you know, what she wanted to do from it. So the only thing I would say is the pools and the hot tubs are really sought after, especially if the weather's nice. We took advantage of using both of these during port days, and because we're early birds, we got off the ship, done what we needed to do, and came back and done it when most people were either just getting off or were still doing their, you know, things off the ship for the day. But they're not very few and far between, because there's loads of them. But what we did notice was, you know, if people were getting into a hot tub, they were staying in them for sort of, you know, a good amount of time. So people then were just using sort of the lounges around that hot tub to sort of almost sort of put their towels down by it and stay by it, so that when those people got out, then, you know, they could use it next. But we would definitely do this cruise again in the future. I would recommend P&O as a cruise company, but we would be open to trying other cruise lines as well in the future. With everything like this, you know, your experience will highly depend on what your expectations were to begin with. We didn't have many expectations because this was our first cruise. We just didn't know what to expect. There were many guests on the ship that were really friendly, polite and engaging, and most of them were fine. However, some used the cruise ship as if it was almost a sort of a private yacht. So this is a little bit of a negative, really. We first noticed it on celebration night, where a lot of the staircases, because they're taking photographs above it or below it, a lot of the staircases are sort of barriered off with rope. But this one family, and this was sort of outside sort of Vista's coffee shop in that part of the atrium there, this particular family of sort of, I don't know, 20 plus people were using it as their own sort of personal place to take photographs. So, you know, they'd be shouting, you and you next, a family member, and you and you next. And this was the only staircase we could actually come down from the top. Now, both myself and Mia were wearing long dresses. So, and my mobility issues as it is, I need to use the handrail. So obviously I needed one hand for the handrail and one hand to hold my dress up. But obviously I was, you know, concerned that my child was walking in front of me as well, and I didn't want her to trip up, and they were basically completely blocking the bottom and one side up the side of the stairs, because they were trying to get every family member of 20 plus people into these photographs at the same time. They were shouting at each other across the atrium. Like I say, keep swapping and changing people around. This wasn't the only occasion that this actually happened. The same group of people were on the last sea day. The atrium was absolutely rammed. There was character meet and greets with some of the characters for the children in the atrium, and one of the shops, the little sort of vegetable plushie shop, I can't remember what it's called now, had an offer on in there as well. And there was a lot of young children there, and this group of family of people who had now gone from 20 plus people to probably like 40 people had overtaken the atrium. So the seating area around all of Vista's, although they weren't buying anything in Vista's, or the bar, and they were just shouting for each other, and they took up the whole of the stairs again, and they were there for a couple of hours just constantly taking photographs of each other over and over and over again. It was absolutely ridiculous. It was extremely selfish. Other people wanted to take photos. It's right at the bottom of the atrium stairs where the massive vase of these beautiful flowers were. So, you know, they were using that as the bottom point, and then, you know, sort of lining everybody up the stairs and across each of the stairs as well, so people couldn't go up or down it. Nobody else could take a photograph by it. Like I say, it was just really, it was ridiculous and extremely selfish, that they thought that it was the only, you know, they were the only people that wanted to to access that or to take photographs there. Behaviour like this is not cool, people. This is not your private yacht. Sorry, rant over. Another con, and it's only a small one, is sometimes the ability to get a drink. You cannot just walk up to the bar at most bars. Some you can, like in the Sky Dome, but others you can't. You have to sit at a table and you have to wait it to be served. If you're not in a rush, then obviously it's fine, but we did wait a little amount of time, probably 10 or 15 minutes every time we ordered a drink, whether that be a coffee or a cold drink from a bar. As long as you're okay with that, then that's fine. But I suppose it's the same as if you go to on holiday to a hotel and things. Same it is. So all in all, extremely happy with the cruise. We absolutely loved it. The fjords, like I say, are breathtaking. Don't think that it's not for you. It is a wonderful place to visit. Like I said, extremely clean, very fresh, very tranquil, very scenic, and just outstanding, really. So if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've got any comments that you can share or any hints or tips you could share with other people, please add them to the comments below. Like I said in the other 2 Fjords vlogs that I've done that have come with no voiceover or anything, I wanted to try and keep the scenery to talk for itself, really. And I wanted to then sort of do an overview in another one, which is what this is. So, but if you could think of anything else that could be helpful to anybody, please stick them in the comments below. And yeah, unfortunately, this is the last of the Fjords vlogs, but I look forward to seeing you in the next one. So, like I say, if you've enjoyed it, hit the like and subscribe before you leave, so you can be notified when I upload the next one. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, guys. Bye.